I guess we're live. I wasn't aware of it. So hello, I'm Susan Crow, and I'm moderating this panel. In late July 2021, there was a spill from a massive diamond mine in Angola that polluted the Chitapa River, which is a major tributary of the Congo River Basin, which is one of the largest river basins in the world. The spill flowed from the Chitapa River into the Kasai River, which is across the border into the Democratic Republic of Congo. It was reported last July that the leak from the mine across the border in DR Congo turned the Chitapa River red, killing hippos, fish, animals, and 12 people from riparian communities, sickening thousands more from the poisonous water. So according to the New York Times, the Katoka diamond mine is owned by Ndiama, I hope I'm pronouncing these right, the Angolan State Mining Company, and the Russian mining giant Alrosa, excuse me. Today on our panel, we have two experts that will help us understand the major social and environmental impacts this spill has created. Hans Burkett is a researcher from International Peace Information Service, IPIS, focusing on the link between natural resources and conflict, development, and human rights. He worked on a grassroots monitoring pilot for artisanal gold mining in Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo, on the human rights impact of small and large-scale mining in Tanzania, and on the operation of the business and human rights agenda. Since 2018, he has been looking more closely at diamonds and the Kimberley process, both as a researcher and as part of the KP Civil Society Coalition. Hans holds a PhD in law from Ghent University with a dissertation on the European Union and the Security Development Nexus. Raphael Shimonga is a professor of hydrology and water resources at the University of Kinshasa, I hope I pronounced that correctly, Democratic Republic of Congo. He is the director of the Congo Basin Water Resources Research Center, CRREBAC. He holds a PhD in hydrology from Rhodes University, focusing on hydrological modeling, uncertainty analysis, and prediction in ungauged basins. For the past decade, Raphael has been closely working with the US, UK, and African-based scientists to promote scientific research and advance knowledge in the Congo River Basin. Thank you, Hans and Raphael, for joining us. Raphael, would you like to start?
Yeah, thank you very much. And hi everyone. Thank you very much, Susan, for all these efforts to clarify the situation that we qualify as a water pollution disaster that happened this year in the Kasai River, Kasai Chikapa rivers, which are actually the major tributaries of the Congo River Basin. The Congo River Basin is actually the second largest world river basin after the Amazon. So I would like actually briefly to present the Kasai River Basin. As you can see here, we do have major river basins in that major hydrological units that form the Congo River Basin. We do have the Ubangi River Basin the Ubangis are basin in the northern part of the Congo Basin. There's Sanga River, which is actually another major sub-basins. There's the Lualaba in the southern part of the Congo Basin, and there is the Middle Congo in the central part of the Congo River Basin, which is actually known as the Cuvette Centrale. And then we do also have the Kasai sub-basin. And in the Kasai sub-basin, the the Kasai River is the major tributary that actually contribute to up to 30% of the flow of the Congo River basins. And the discharge of the area of the Kasai subbasins approximate 900,000 kilometers. So what happened really is that most of these tributaries, as you can see, there is the gray line, the border gray line. That's actually the boundary between DRC and the Angola. In the south, it's actually the Angola part, and the other northern part is the DRC. So the Kasai subbasins, the Kasai subbasin is shared between the Angola and DRC. And the major tributaries on the Kasai subbasins are coming from Angola. So they include, there is Quilo, there is Kwango, there is Loange, there is Lulua, Sankuro, Fimi, Lubefu, Lubilashi, and there is also the Chikapa River that actually originate from the Angola side. So in terms of potential water use, and also the water, the population, the situation of socioeconomic situation in the basin. So we understand that the potential water uses comprise domestic use. Water resources in the basins are used for domestic purposes. They are also used for fisheries, agriculture, hydropower, navigation. Also, there is also the mining activities in the area. So the access to basic needs such as electricity is very low. In the Kasai, access to electricity is about 0.8% against the 10%, which is actually the national average of accessibility to electricity in DRC. So the percentage also of access to water, clean water, is very low in the Kasai River basin. And so the main activities that actually are being used for, that actually provide let's say the lucrative activities in the basins include the exploitation of minerals such as diamonds and gold. And these actually have been used since decades. They are being used both from Angola and DRC side. And there are major pollutions that are actually coming from these activities, and that actually also degrading the water quality in this area. So the most important thing to mention here is that really people take raw water from these rivers for the domestic use. So the treatment of water is really very difficult in this area. And this area is very vulnerable because it has been subject to many conflicts. There is this conflict of Kamwina Sapu, and there are also a lot of refugees in this area that have been coming from Angola and so on. So this the vulnerability this vulnerability of people really it's high in this region. So this year, as I said, we observed a major pollution of water coming from Angola, which actually we qualify as environmental disaster that happened this year. So as you can see here, this is the Kasai River. This is the Kasai River. You can see the color, and we got this image from Sentinel Vision. That is actually based in France, and you can see this color is really reddish, and this is in the Kasai River, and the label is also a city that was actually, that was concerned, and this is where we had the death of people, about 12 people who died in this city. So this is the city of Chikapa, where there is the Chikapa River and the Kasai River is meeting. So the Chikapa River is discharging into the Kasai River, and as you can see, the progression of the Chikapa, the pollution in the Chikapa River, it's coming here, and also in the city of Chikapa, which is actually highly populated. So, and it meets the Kasai River. You can see the Kasai River from upstream. The color is actually grayish. It's actually very different. But when it meets the Chikapa River, so the color of the Kasai River changes. So the Chikapa River is actually originating from Angola, is taking its source in Angola, and this is actually from where the pollutants were discharged directly into the river. So, and tracing the source of pollution, we came to understand that the pollution was coming from this city, this site, where the Katoka mining activities are being carried out. So this image is actually an aerial view of the Katoka mine, and so it's actually still active. It's still active, and according to the literature and what we have come to learn, so the depth of this facility is around 200 meters. So, and it's active until 2034, and according to the information to our that actually available to us, so by 2034 the facility will have a depth of 600 meters. So, which means that really, if preventive measures are not taken into consideration, so what we have seen this year will likely happen again in the future. So these are all the images that we have got from Google Earth, and as you can see here on the image top right, this is the city of Chikapa that is highly populated. They use water from Chikapa River and also Kasai River. So the two rivers meet in the Chikapa River, which is actually the main city. And as you can see, the turbidity of the Chikapa River is still high. So, which means that the situation really, it's actually a long-term historical situation. But what happened this year is that really the pollutants were released in very huge quantity, so which actually triggered the action from DRC. But then, as you can see from these images, this situation is not new. This situation has been happening for quite many years, and it's still continuing. So really, we hope that the measures should be taken into consideration. Appropriate measures should be taken into action. So we estimated some exposure, what has been exposed to the pollution, the effect of pollution. So we came to understand that really, as you can see from this image, the top right, this is the catchment between the Angola. No, this is catchment in Angola, where there is the Katoka, and where also the Chikapa River is originating from. And it's in this catchment that really that the pollution originated from. It's actually in Angola, in the province of Lunda Sul and Lunda North. It's actually divided by, it's actually split between the two territories, 2 provinces in Angola. So, and when we are talking about the exposure of population to this pollution that happened, we found out that there are almost 12 sites that we identified. There is the site of Lunda North, in Angola, Lunda Sul and Lunda North in Angola, Lunda North and Kasai, that is already in DRC. And there's the Chikapa, the town of Chikapa, the city of Ilebo, the city of Dibayalubwe, the city of Pano, Pinanga, Kutumuke, Lediba, and Kwamut. So this is actually the administrative entities that were exposed to the pollution, the effect of pollution. And we estimated about 2 million of population that are living in these areas. So apart from the population, we also estimated that they were the hunting domain of Mangai, and also the hunting domain of Oshwe, that actually the protected area that also are exposed. And also there is the protected area of hypos that actually was also affected. And here we had about 2 hypos that were dead. There are also wetland, a lot of wetland in the Kasai, that part, the itinerary of the pollution, and also the aquifers that actually also were exposed. So the immediate effect that have been actually assessed so far. So we have been able in DRC through the government to identify 12 deaths of people at Ilebo, the city of Ilebo. More than 4,500 cases of diarrhea were recorded. And also we had 13 rural health zone. I think Hans is working in DRC. He knows better the concept of rural health zone that actually divided throughout the DRC. So in this area, we do have 18 rural zones and rural health zones. But out of these 18 rural health zones, 13 have been affected. So about 970,000 people have been identified as directly affected to the cause of pollution. 2 hypos were declared dead, and also there were disruption of access to water for domestic purpose. So we identified floating dead fish that actually were there, and also they were collected by people. By ignorance, people were using them for the food. So these are actually the immediate effects that have been identified. But really, there is still an issue about the identification of midterm and long-term effects that actually that could actually originate from this situation of pollution. So the actions that have been implemented so far from the government level, so the issue was discussed in the government meeting in August, and the recommendations were made for urgent actions. Actually, the recommendations were made to contact the Angolan, the ambassador from Angola in DRC, which actually our government did, and also the Minister of Environment went to the site to assess the situation in the sites. So this actually at political level in DRC, but from also regional level, there is the Economic Commission of Central African States that addressed a not verbal to urge the Angolan government to collaborate, because there was still a sort of reluctance from the Angolan part. So but then the ECAS, the Economic Commission of Central African African states. So address this note verbal to the Angolan government. So they were able actually to collaborate with DRC. So from technical and scientific level, we had a scientific workshop that actually, brought together about 36 institutions, and we made recommendations. We made about 31 recommendations for actions. But unfortunately, these recommendations are not so far implemented. So, and we do have also on the Kasai River, we do have a East Coast station. So this station was the main purpose of this station was to monitor the sediment, collect daily samples for sediment monitoring on the Kasai. That actually the sediment is affecting the navigation in the Kasai River. But then we thought also we could use these samples to analyze the effect of pollution. So what actually we did, we collect these samples and we sent them to a lab. But really the results, we thought that really the results were not really. So there was a kind we thought that our results were mishandled, and which actually we linked to a sabotage. So the current situation actually in at the national level is really that I can say that we are lacking a thorough monitoring of the effect of pollution 3 months later. So there is no really a tangible result coming from what happened from this pollution. So I can say, I don't know what can I call it, political bias. So this is actually something that really we need to be investigated. And I can say, to conclude, I can say that there is a real need for deeper investigation, and we need also to implement measures for attenuation, compensation, reparation, and prevention. So from this, really, I thank you for listening. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Raphael, very much.
Hello?
That was very interesting.
Yeah.
Hans, would you like to continue with your presentation?
Yes, thank you. And thank you, Raphael. Indeed, that was very, very insightful. I think you see my presentation now. Let me put it on full screen. There might some elements I might go a bit quicker, as Raphael has already covered a lot of ground, which is great. So just very briefly, now I won't elaborate much, but a bit about the institution I work for. So IPIS is a civil society research institute based in Belgium. We work on the 4 main themes that you see on the bottom of the slide. And I think in short, our main expertise is in collecting data in complex environments, often on the impacts of artisanal, small and large scale mining. So what I would like to start talking about in my presentation is what we know to date, to drawing a kind of state of affairs of what we know about the pollution. And to give you already a spoiler, it is unfortunately still quite little. I might go a bit quicker on aspects that Raphael has already covered, as I said. So firstly, about the when, we know that end of July, a front of pollution started moving down hundreds of kilometers of rivers. I think on the next slide here, I have a visualization that was made by Visioterra that shows quite clearly where the pollution front was at on different moments in time. So it was first seen on the 25th of July. You then see here on the 30th of July, it crossed the DRC border and went further down the Kasai River after Chikapa, as Raphael explained. So we know when the consequences were started being seen. We still have some questions remaining about when the causes of this pollution started, and I'll address that when I talk about the who, which I'll do right now. So in the beginning, there was still a bit of confusion about the who. People first thought about artisanal miners or generally the diamond mining region. in northern Angola. But then mid-August, I think, it became quite clear that the source of the massive discoloration of the water was the Katoka diamond mine. I think Raphael has already shown some satellite images that reveal this. Just I'll go over it very quickly. Here you see you can actually access all of this online and explore it yourself interactively, which is much clearer than the static images I have here. But you see on the 20th of July, there was not much to be seen yet. You see that something is brewing here already. But then on the 25th of July, you see, and this is the Katoka mine, by the way, that a plume of pollution started flowing here. Also, some reparation works on the dam had started. And then when you follow this plume, the water that flows to what is still the rather small Lova River in Angola, you see that as soon as this, and then here it's zoomed in a bit, that this is the wastewater from the mine, and when it enters the Lova River, this turns red. So that made it very clear that Katoka was the source of the massive discoloration of the water. And indeed, on September 3, the Katoka mine admitted to a breach in its protection dike and claimed to have taken steps to contain it, and said that it was working on a recovery plan. Maybe a bit more on this Katoka mine, because it's important to understand who this is, and particularly important is that this is not just any small player. It is the fourth biggest diamond mine in the world. It produces 7 million carats worth $800 million a year. And its shareholders are also not just some small players, but it's Endiama, which is Angola's state-owned diamond miner that has a 41% stake. It's Alrosa, that is the Russian state-owned diamond miner, that's another 41% stake. And Levleviev International, which is a Chinese-based player with an 18% stake. Alrosa, in particular, is the biggest player here. It is the biggest diamond producer in the world, producing a quarter of the world's diamonds. So just to say, these are not just some small players, these are big players that do have the means to provide adequate follow-up. What remains uncertain about the who and when is that there's still some confusion about the dates. Katoka admitted to a breach on the 27th of July. Satellite imagery shows that actually something had already started between the 20th and the 25th of July. So this is still to be resolved, and that also means what we know today is that we can't rule out that there's any other additional source of pollution. Indeed, in that area, there's a lot of diamond mines. Katoka is the biggest one, but there's many others, and satellite imagery, this is the last satellite imagery I'll show. This is, for instance, two other smaller diamond mines in that region. You also see here that the water before it enters the mine is still greenish. After when the water leaves, it also leaves in a brown with a brown color. So this just to show that there's probably ongoing pollution from numerous mines that also needs to be looked at. So this is also very important. What kind of pollution are we talking about? In order to determine the causes and consequences of that pollution, it is important that large-scale testing of water and sediments is done in the tailing basins of the different mines around the water flows around those mines, but also further downstream in Angola and DRC. And ideally, that should have happened rather quickly in order to avoid distortion by too many other variables. But unfortunately, nothing of that kind happened. There was no comparable data testing campaign that would allow to answer these questions with certainty. The DRC government did some tests early September in the affected zones, and then confirmed that these contained heavy metals, and I have to look at nickel and iron to be specifically, and that the pH levels of the water were off. Congo's Minister of Environment and Sustainable Development said, and I quote, that the water was practically acid, sucking all oxygen out of it and making aquatic life impossible. Now, Katoka, on the other hand, also reported on its water and sediment tests and said that these didn't reveal any metals and toxins in the immediate surroundings of the mine, only sand and clay, likening it to, and I quote again, mud flows in the rainy season, which altered the oxygen levels within the river water. So in other words, this could explain the massive fish deaths, but they indicate that it couldn't explain the human health effects. Now, I'm not a geochemical expert, but I talked to a few of them, and they say that this statement by Katoka doesn't say much because sand and clay, that refers to particle sizes of the samples, not their chemical composition. So that's an important question that remains to be answered by Katoka Mine. And in general, neither Katoka Mine nor the DRC revealed their test results, which makes it impossible to do public scrutiny of them. So here again, a lot of questions remain, and they're quite problematic, because in this way we cannot be sure that the source of the pollution is contained and that the effects of it can be mitigated. I think Raphael has already talked quite a bit about the consequences of this pollution. I've highlighted some elements that stem from civil society monitoring in the area, environmental, health, social, and economic effects. I won't go into detail now. We can always, I think, elaborate more in the Q&A. But just to say that it was more rather ad hoc monitoring, because there were no resources for civil society to do a comprehensive monitoring campaign. And I think also important to say is that while the water in those rivers has returned to its normal color, the consequences are still being felt. And there were recent reports of a typhoid outbreak in Kasai, with hundreds of children reportedly having high fever, and that was linked due to the limited availability of clean drinking water given that the river is still polluted. So now let me go to the next. Now, who's responsible here? And the international framework to talk about that are the United Nations Principles on Business and Human Rights. And they have three pillars. It's the governmental duty to protect human rights, the corporate responsibility to respect human rights, and finally, access to remedy. That's the third pillar. It has also often been termed the forgotten or ignored pillar, because access to remedy is often missing, as also in this case, it seems a very distant reality. So firstly, the corporate responsibility. Again, this is not specific to this case. It's a broader challenge that often complex corporate structures diffuse responsibility, as many players are involved. And then here I'm only talking about the Katoka mine, not about all the smaller mines involved or actors further down the supply chain. So who are these players and what have they done? How have they taken their responsibility? First, Katoka Mine itself. On communication, it scored not particularly strong. It had a first press release on September 9, which is 1.5 months after the leakage started. Initially only in Portuguese, and it's only recently, I think probably due to rising international attention for it, that they started communicating more. Now they have a segment on their website specifically focused on their efforts around this spill, and also have this translated in English. On transparency, there's also issues. As I said before, the test results haven't been released, which, well, we have to rely on their communication about them. And then the recovery plan, on their website, they write about a few initiatives they've taken. They've handed out 400 basic good packages to families. They invested $125,000 USD in water system maintenance, and a number of other community projects are underway. Now, it's important to note here that this is focused on the immediate surroundings of the mine, so this cannot really be termed a recovery plan that seeks to mitigate the full impact of the damages they have contributed to. Now, Ndiama, so that's the Alrosa state-owned diamond miner that has a 41% stake in the mine. They have not communicated at all on this. When you look at their website, you see it also on the left in Portuguese. They have a number of press releases about the soccer team they support, about an upcoming international diamond conference in Angola, but nothing on the pollution. Alrosa is the biggest player here. They're a prominent member of the World Diamond Council, the Responsible Jewelry Council. They're committed to the highest ethical standards. So it is most surprising and let's say frustrating even that they have not shown a lot of leadership to date on this concerning case. If you look at their website or their public communication, there's no mention whatsoever about this the Katoka spill. In responses to journalists, they've pulled their hands off this case. They say they're only a minority shareholder. They're not involved in operational issues of the mine. That's not only unfortunate communication. I would say it also doesn't seem to be true when you look at their website. Alrosa itself writes that they have designed the production and beneficiation complex of the Katoka mine, and they provide ongoing technical support. In one public reaction to the Wall Street Journal, Alrosa stated that it has offered support and expertise to remedy the consequences of the spill and is committed to bringing more transparency. That was early September. Since then, we have heard nothing more, and this transparency still is about to come. And then finally, there's Lev Leviev International. It's a player that is not often mentioned in reports on this, although they are not negligible. They have an 18% stake in the mine, but not much is known about their role in this. Then secondly, about the governmental duty to protect. So what have the Angola and DRC governments done? From the Angola government, we have actually not heard very much. Their environment ministry said in September that they had sent specialists to communities along the rivers to assess the damage, but also here again, no results of that were released. The environmental news site Mangabe reported that DRC officials were not allowed to visit Katoka or any other mines to scrutinize the tests by Katoka, and also a ministerial visit of DRC to Angola was postponed quite a number of times. So then on the DRC side, there was, we've mentioned it before, a ministerial visit early September, but there has been very little follow-up of that since. A member of parliament from DRC, Guy Mafuta, recently even complained that the humanitarian aid that was announced for the affected communities, including food and medicine, has been stuck in a depot for over a month and is meanwhile dilapidating, which is also quite concerning. There seems to have been a change of approach from the DRC government. Initially, they were quite aggressive, stressing the polluter pays principle to get compensation from the responsible party in this pollution, and they haven't really come back to that since. And what is noteworthy, or at least remarkable in this regard, is that Alrosa has meanwhile, that was announced on September 9, signed a memorandum of understanding with the DRC state-owned diamond miner MIBA. MIBA has been known to be in very difficult financial situation with very high debts for years. And so this raises the question of whether the risk of jeopardizing this lifeline offered by Alrosa might have influenced the communication of DRC authorities in this case. So that's an open question. Now, I personally find it beyond comprehension that we know so little. 4.5 months actually after this started, and that so little has been done. But this is frustrating, but it's also interesting to look at what this tells us. I think, first of all, the impacts of mining are often felt in remote places where monitoring is difficult. That is a problem that needs to be considered. Also, the affected communities in a case like this and in many other cases tend to remain voiceless because they are so disconnected from the global supply chain that affects them. And these two observations mean that there's little independent impact assessment or verification of company claims. In this case, for instance, Katoka Mine has a whole environmental chapter on its website. But a disaster like this was actually necessary in order to have this scrutinized. Also important to note, I think, is that it's the visibility and the acuteness of this case that brought it to our attention that makes that we are talking about it today. It's the fact that we were able to see it remotely, even on satellite imagery, that makes that journalists could write about it, that there was some attention for this case, although in our view, of course, not sufficient. This means that many cases of chronic pollution tend to stay below the radar. As I think Raphael also explained, this was a huge spill, but there's other pollution from that diamond mining region that is ongoing that has remained below the radar entirely. Now, I've mentioned before that governments are failing in their duty to protect and companies in their responsibility to respect human rights, and therefore it is essential to equip communities and civil society with the tools and skills for independent monitoring of the environmental impact of mining. My organization IPIS does that a lot. We try to build, to enhance capacities for community-based monitoring that has mostly so far been centered on socioeconomic and human rights monitoring, but there's a need to complement that with more scientific skills in order to be able to conduct the tests that have not been conducted so far, also for both acute cases and chronic cases of pollution. So these were mainly a few thoughts I wanted to share with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Hans. That was a great presentation, as well as Raphael's. We have some questions over in our chat box. And if anyone else has any questions, please write them in and we'll go over them. Joanne Liebert has asked, Raphael, can you speak more to the political challenges and biases, DRC and Angola, and relationship between the two? Also, do Congolese and Angola scientists cooperate? And that brings up for me an article I read about that there's been a call to actually try and create a Congo Basin group with both countries of scientists that will cooperate with each other. Has any movement in this direction been seen? Do you think this is a possibility? Raphael?
Yeah, so yeah, thank you very much, Susan, and thank you very much, Hans, for this great presentation. And you know, when I'm talking about the political biases, I think through the Hans presentation, this has been quite well clarified. So the government failure to protect people and the failure of companies to comply with the human rights, and this is actually what I call political bias. And you can see, and also as Hans has clearly put it up, is that you know, at the beginning the DRC government was eager, you know, to invest in the situation, to you know, to push for compensation and so on. But later on, so the government is, you know, slowing down. So this is actually what we do not understand from science point of view, scientific point of view, and also from technical point of view. We requested that really scientists, you know, experts should go to the source. Because, you know, it's not only about the pollution, about compensation, about, you know, reparation, but also it's about we are in the you know, the context of climate change. We are, you know, we are caring about people and so on. So we need really to understand what really happened, really, and what could have been the you know, the composition of this pollution in terms of chemicals and so on. So this really has been a challenge so far. And we didn't succeed to do that. So the Angolan government didn't allow scientists from DRC to go to the site. It's a remote area, and as I can see, Johan is actually putting it in the chat that so that part of Angola is actually a very remote area where people do not really voice themselves. So. So we didn't get that opportunity as scientists, as experts, to go to the source. So that actually has been a very big challenge in order to identify the nature of the pollution. So this is actually what I'm calling political bias, because there has not been a clear cooperation between two countries. As well, there has not been collaboration between scientists from DRC and from Angola. So this is actually some issues that we have been facing. So facing this failure, and so from the government and from the industries. So how can scientists, how can civil societies come in to play and to voice really themselves in order to protect the environment, to protect the humans, and you know, so this is actually the conclusion that is coming clearly from Hans' presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Raphael. That was very interesting to find out that there's really not much being done as far as collaboration. Christina Molly has a question. Has the RJC or the individual corporate members of the RJC pressed their own suppliers on this, or have the government member states of the KP pressed on this? Alrosa, Susan Wheeler then says Alrosa is second on the board of the RJC. They did not let anyone know when the spill initially happened in August. Then after the news broke on the spill, Alrosa invested in DRC diamonds. So has there been any RJC movement on this? Does anyone know?
Yeah, I can maybe talk a little bit about that. IPIS is a member of the Kimberley Process Civil Society Coalition, and since somewhere this year, we started having regular meetings with the RJC, with Responsible Jewelry Council. We brought it up in our in the two last meetings we had with them, and they replied that they were going to look into this, but we have so far not gotten any response. So it's difficult to know what happens, of course, in backstage. With regard to the KP, so this week the Kimberley Process plenary meeting is ongoing under the Russian chairmanship. It's a rotating chairmanship that Russia holds this year. The Kimberley Process Civil Society Coalition brought it up in our opening speech to the KP plenary. So civil society is an observer to this process. We don't have any decision-making power, but we have we are offered the opportunity of opening the plenary with one of the speeches where we try to raise attention for issues like this, where we have called on the DRC and Angola government to take action on this. That hasn't been discussed any further or beyond that during this week's meeting of the KP. We will address it again in our closing speech that will take place in a few, in 1 hour or so, but it has not been taken up. It, of course, falls outside of the very narrow scope of the KP that only looks at issues related to civil war and diamonds. So there are very limited platforms, I would say, to get attention for this. And in that regard, I would think that the Responsible Jewelry Council is a better avenue to get action on this than the KP, which is a very slow and narrow body. But it remains to be seen to what extent they will act on this. Alrosa, indeed, also is one of the is a very big player that is part of the RJC that has committed to high standards. So it would be, well, it's as I said before, it's quite surprising that they take their hands out this entirely.
Thank you. Joanne Liebert has a comment. 125,000 invested in recovery plan for the community thus far. Katoka's revenue forecast was around 400 million in recent years. So that's quite a huge discrepancy in profit versus how much they're trying to help. Let's see, there are a few other questions. One of them is, who is protecting the interests of the people in view of the history of corruption around diamonds? I think we've gone over, we've talked a little bit about who's helping. And I think it was Raphael, you made a comment that some of these, I think it was Raphael, some of, most of these communities are along the rivers they don't have a voice. And so who is helping them? Who is hearing them? And I think if we could talk a bit about that. And also, what do we do? We're the jewelry industry. How can we help in bringing these situations to the light? And how does this affect us? And what should we do about it? If either of you have any comments on that, it would be real helpful for this community.
Yeah, thank you very much, Susan. So what I can say, there are some actions on the ground from local level. There have been civil societies voicing themselves, but the communication is very limited at local level. So they've been making some short videos, so in local languages and so on. But really, for this to reach to the international community is not really it's hard. It's hard. And there was also a movement of member of parliament from the area that have been, I think, Hans mentioned it through his presentation. There is the Mafuta, Mr. Mafuta, who is the member of parliament coming from that area. So he had a group of people, trying to mobilize resources and so on. But, this actually, for quite some time now, so is also quiet. So it seems that really there have been a sort of dynamics, local dynamics, but they didn't get any support from the government or from, also people are being afraid, people are being afraid and so on. This is actually what I'm trying to understand. And so what can be done to help really? Here we are talking to international community, we are talking to experts, and we are talking to people who are able to voice themselves and to be understood in the world. I think the world is not really aware of what is happening, what has happened, and what is going to happen. If the world can actually can be aware of what's happening, I think that is the most important thing. Another thing really is we need to send scientists to the field to collect samples, species, and so on, to try to understand really what happened as the situation, so that some preventive measures could be prepared and put into place. So could there be an opportunity because this has been so far very difficult, could there be an opportunity for both scientists from Angola, from both Angola and DRC, join actions or join efforts to go to the field from the source and to test the situation from the source up to DRC? Is that possible? So how that can be done? I think there is a need of somewhere putting pressure on our government so that they can act really. So I think there is that need so far.
Yeah, maybe if I can add, first of all, indeed, on what has so far been done by Katoka and the 125,000 USD, and then in addition, they've invested in 20 fishing ponds, they say. So it's very limited. It's part of their immediate community relations. It's not at all serving to address the magnitudes of this situation. I think the point of Raphael of needing to send a mission to the affected areas with experts or civil society, not only, I think, on the one hand, indeed, to assess the situation, to assess the pollution that is still occurring or the effects that are still occurring, but also to provide remedy and follow-up. And I think that is needed, first of all, in order to address the very real risks that are still there, but also I think to maintain attention for this important case, because we see that attention is fading. There was some media attention for it when the rivers were still red, when it was still very visible. That's when journalists have something to report on. Now I'm in contact with a few journalists, and they ask regularly for whether there's any new evidence or anything they can report on the fact that all these questions remain, that there's so little, this uncertainty doesn't make it very appealing for people to work or to report on this. So we need to have some more movement on this that gets it back into the spotlight and on the agenda, because this uncertainty is very worrying for the population there, but also means that it will be the spotlight on this will fade away, and as there's less attention for it, there will also be less pressure on industry and governments to do something about it. So I think that is a very important one.
Hans, you talked about that it was possible that other diamond mines were also leaking chemicals, because you said there are quite a few diamond mines in the area. Is it possible that a group could come in and do sediment testing? Would that show anything as far as chemicals or heavy metals in the water?
I think Raphael can definitely also talk to that. In general, I would say I would say, yes, that is precisely what is needed. Look at all the tailing water of all these mines, the water in their surroundings, and then further downstream. And you will see two different things. On the one hand, there is the very acute pollution that occurred at the end of July, early August. But it's very likely, as Raphael said, that there's ongoing chronic pollution that is still happening, and that needs to be addressed. And that's the case in Angola. We've seen it with one of our civil society coalition members in Lesotho. They're trying to get attention for years already. They've been able to do that on this forum as well, for pollution by diamond mines in Lesotho Highlands. So there's a need to do more of these tests. But I'm sure Raphael also has thoughts on this.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you very much, Hans. Really, we need given the time that is has gone, we need really now to go testing sediment, testing species would be actually a good approach. But also, we still have also to test the flow, because this situation, is not, it has been going on and it's still going on, really. And also testing flow would still actually give us some indication.
Well, we're coming up to the end of our time. This has been real interesting. I did a lot of research before this conversation, and hearing both of your presentations was fabulous. So Christina Male has a question. Because once again, we're trying to figure out, how does this affect the jewelry industry? We know it affects us directly, but what can we do about it? And sometimes, because the jewelry industry is so opaque, it's very difficult for us to figure out how to help. And she had a question: would it make any sense to pay for an open letter to the NYT, FT, WSJ, to the corporate members of the RJC, asking why they source from Alrosa? And Yama, and all of them, without demanding, and why aren't they having accountability? Why aren't they saying something? And going back to the journalists also wanting more information, it's like if they just all remain mute about this, no one can report on it. So how do we push this forward? How do we get this going so that more reporting is done and it's brought into the open, to the public's eye? Either of you can comment, and then we'll probably have to close the session.
Yeah, I think indeed that there's probably what I see as most doable option next is that we can do an op-ed or something of that sort in order to put it back on the agenda. It would be great if we would have the scientific expertise of Raphael also to contribute to that. That would be that's something I can see happening. Otherwise, yeah, it's difficult. I think we need to continue asking questions indeed to Alrosa, RJC, and others involved in order to see to what extent something can be done about this.
Yeah.
Thank you. Christina also said you two would be amazing co-authors of an op-ed, so maybe in the future. Yeah. Thank you both so much. This has been very informative and a great presentation. I appreciate all the work you put into it, and I think all of us in the community respect you two and just love to hear what you have to say.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we'll talk later. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.